To bring about the destruction of a man without drawing a sword or raising a hand, one must first understand that power lies not in force, but in perception. Reputation is the citadel of a man's power. It is what others believe of him that grants him authority, not what he truly is. Thus, to unravel him entirely, begin not with assault but with whispers. The wise do not declare war on a man's character, they sow doubt. A frontal attack on another's reputation invites suspicion and scrutiny toward the attacker. Instead, act as if you admire the man publicly, while privately allowing questions to arise. Ask leading questions. Express concern, not condemnation. Is he truly as honest as he seems? How did he come to such fortune so quickly? These are not accusations. They are the kindling of a slow-burning fire. If spoken with a tone of innocence, they will be carried by others who think themselves clever for uncovering faults. Never fabricate, but always exaggerate what already exists. Find a kernel of truth in his past, a poor decision, an inconsistency, a small vice, and magnify it. Let others believe they are uncovering something hidden, for what is discovered is always more damaging than what is proclaimed. One cannot defend effectively against implications whispered in corners or suspicions carried by trusted friends. The victim will find himself fighting phantoms, exhausting himself against shadows, unable to grasp where the attack comes from. Choose your couriers wisely. Let those who repeat your words be people of perceived neutrality or trustworthiness. A scandal spread by a known enemy is easily dismissed. One spread by an ally is believed without contest. Plant your doubts in the mouths of those close to him, for betrayal by proximity is the most convincing form of treachery. A trusted advisor who says, "I fear he may be slipping," does more harm than 10 rivals shouting accusations. If he enjoys a reputation for honesty, praise it while suggesting he is naive. If he is known for charity, question whether he does it for appearances. If people admire his confidence, raise the idea that it borders on arrogance. Every virtue has a shadow, and by turning the gaze toward it, you transform admiration into suspicion. The shift is never immediate. It is slow, deliberate, corrosive. But when reputation begins to decay, it accelerates. Men are quick to abandon a falling star, and the more his image suffers, the more the crowd will turn on him, not out of malice but out of self-interest. The most elegant part of this method is that your own hands remain clean. He will never accuse you directly, for you have not spoken against him publicly. Should he suspect your role, he cannot prove it without appearing paranoid. If he begins to defend himself too vigorously, others will wonder why he protests so much. You have forced him into a corner where every defense only confirms the doubt. Understand that reputation, once frayed, rarely returns to its original form. Even if truth is later uncovered, the damage endures. The mind clings to scandal and forgets correction. Those who have been exposed to the seed of suspicion will always wonder. A man might regain his position, but not the aura that once shielded him. He will move forward always with a limp, and in that weakness, others will find their advantage. Therefore, to destroy someone without ever attacking them, let reputation be the first thread pulled. The unraveling of his standing will be done by his peers, his allies, and the crowd, not by your hand. And when he falls, he will find himself alone, confused as to how it began, and powerless to stop it. The fatal error of most men lies not in their vices, but in their virtues. For a man is praised for consistency, admired for charity, trusted for honesty, and respected for loyalty. But these qualities, when exercised without moderation, are the very instruments of his undoing. One need not strike a blow to bring him low instead. Let him continue in his righteousness, only with gentle encouragement, a nudge toward excess. What appears noble in moderation becomes dangerous when applied universally, and it is here that a wise manipulator may find his advantage. Take the honest man. He is seen as trustworthy, incorruptible, the sort to speak truth even when it is inconvenient. Society reveres him, and he in turn takes pride in his integrity. But honesty is not a neutral weapon. It cuts both ways. A man who must always speak the truth becomes predictable, and predictability is the first vulnerability. You may lead him into situations where his truth-telling becomes his curse. In a public setting, ask him his opinion of those in power. Encourage him to be candid, to show his virtue. When his words offend, you have not harmed him. He has harmed himself. His honesty will sow discord where silence would have served him better. Praise him for his forthrightness as others begin to distance themselves. Consider the generous man. He is adored for his giving spirit, and those around him always expect more. Let him continue on this path and gently remind him how loved he is for his kindness. Suggest new causes, appeal to his sense of duty, bring forth those in need. He will give and give again until he bleeds himself dry. The applause he earns will fade when he can no longer sustain the flow of gifts. Those who once praised him will now look elsewhere, for gratitude is short-lived, and the crowd always hungers for more. You, having done nothing but smile at his virtue, will watch as he bankrupts himself not only in coin but in esteem. Then there is the loyal man, faithful to his companions, his cause, his sovereign. This man believes steadfastness is his armor, yet it often becomes his chain. One only needs to place him between conflicting loyalties. Let him be caught between his allegiance to a friend and his duty to an institution. Whisper gently to both sides and let them each expect his unwavering support. He will be paralyzed, unable to act without betraying someone. The resulting indecision will be seen as weakness by all parties. He will lose the trust of both sides not because he wavered, but because he was too loyal to choose. Even ambition, that fire which drives men to greatness, may be turned inward until it consumes. Feed it with praise, inflate his sense of destiny. Whisper that he is born to rule, that others envy his talents. He will grow impatient with the pace of his rise. He may begin to overreach, to act before the time is ripe. The ambitious man who moves too soon destroys himself before his enemies even raise a hand. And if he fails, those who once admired his drive will question his judgment. It is essential, then, to always remember, a virtue becomes a vice when applied too rigidly, too universally, or too proudly. Men often believe their strength lies in their consistent adherence to principle, but the man who cannot bend is the first to break. The art lies not in suppressing a man's better nature, but in inflaming it beyond reason. Commend his character. In public, admire it in private, and feed the fire that will one day scorch him. Let him believe that his greatest traits are not only sufficient, but invincible. For when he falls, he will not understand how his honor became his ruin, and he will search for traitors where there were only mirrors. No man is powerful alone. Strength is derived from the alliances he maintains, the trust others place in him, the circle that surrounds him and lends legitimacy to his position. Thus, to weaken a man without touching him, one must not confront him directly, but corrode the foundation upon which his power rests, his relationships. The wise strategist does not strike at the head, but at the arms and legs, severing them, one by one through influence, suggestion, and silent manipulation. A man isolated from his network is a tree without roots, still standing perhaps, but dying all the same. To isolate him, one does not need to convince others that he is evil, only that he is no longer useful, trustworthy, or predictable. Begin by identifying his closest allies, those whose support makes him formidable. These individuals must not be attacked, but gently turned. Speak to their self-interest. Suggest that their loyalty is not being returned in equal measure. Ask if their position is truly secure, or if they are being used merely as pawns. Doubt is a slow poison. It requires no force, only the right questions in the right ears. Allow them to believe these doubts are their own thoughts. Once one of his allies begins to drift, the others will notice and wonder why. The key lies in subtle disruption, not open defection. Whisper to one that their peer has ambitions beyond their station. Suggest to another that decisions are being made behind closed doors without their input. Imply that the man at the center, the one you seek to destroy, is becoming arrogant or worse, paranoid. Let the image form that he is no longer the wise leader, but a desperate one grasping at control. Do not say these things yourself. Let others come to these conclusions through what they observe, aided by the lens you have quietly placed before them. Every man has enemies, even among friends. There are always rivalries beneath the surface, hidden resentments, perceived slights. Stir these gently. If two of his allies distrust one another, feed the tension with quiet observations. If one feels overlooked, sympathize and validate the sentiment. Present yourself not as an enemy, but as a confidant. You are not attacking their leader. You are merely helping them see the truth more clearly. It is they who will do the separating. You only provide the mirror. As more of his circle turns inward or away, he will begin to sense the change. At first he may deny it, thinking it a temporary distance. But the wise man, once isolated, becomes suspicious. That suspicion leads him to misstep. He confronts allies too soon, accuses without evidence, overcorrects in policy or tone. These actions reinforce the doubts already sown, making others retreat further. What was once a strong network becomes brittle, then shatters. He begins to speak more but is heard less. His requests are delayed, his orders questioned, his presence met with cold smiles and false courtesies. Once isolated, his influence evaporates. Allies no longer echo his words, his enemies grow emboldened, and the neutral begin to shift away from the center. Power moves toward where it is seen to grow. And a man who is alone, no matter how intelligent or accomplished, becomes a figure of decline. He is watched closely but not followed. His voice grows louder, but it reaches no ears. The people around him will begin to speak of him in the past tense, even while he still stands in the room. They will say, "He was once respected," or "He used to command loyalty." They will not even recognize that they themselves were the architects of his fall. They were never ordered, only nudged. They did what they believed best for themselves. You merely made them see that what was best no longer included him. The man once surrounded now finds no counsel he can trust, no companion who speaks without motive. And when the final moment arrives, when decisions must be made, or crises, confronted, he will stand alone not by decree but by the quiet shifting of sand under his feet, influenced by words never attributed, suspicions never confirmed, and loyalties that vanished without confrontation. Men live more by what they believe than by what they know. Truth is weighty, slow, and often irrelevant to the court of public opinion. Perception, however, is light, fast, and infinitely more malleable. One does not need to change a man's actions to destroy him, only how those actions are seen. The wise do not labor to prove a lie, but to shape the interpretation of the truth. When you control what others think they see, you need not concern yourself with what actually is. Begin not with contradiction, but with suggestion. Let perception shift naturally, as if guided by the eyes of the beholder, not the hands of the manipulator. Do not tell people what to think. Give them the story they want to believe. Make them feel clever for drawing conclusions you have quietly placed before them. It is far more effective to allow a man to think he sees corruption, pride, or weakness than to accuse someone of it openly. The former becomes certainty. The latter provokes doubt. A man may be loyal, yet you can make him appear scheming. He may be just, but if his decisions inconvenience others, it is not difficult to paint him as rigid or tyrannical. If he succeeds, frame his success as luck or theft. If he fails, point out how it confirms what was already suspected. Every event, no matter how mundane, can be given a different light. Do not create new facts. Shift the lens through which the facts are viewed. What was once honorable becomes excessive. What was once prudent becomes cowardly. What was once strength becomes overcompensation. Control the narrative, and the man becomes a character within it. The beauty of perception is that it requires no proof. If a man is said to be falling out of favor, others will begin to treat him as though he is. If he is rumored to be plotting, then even his silence will be interpreted as secretive. Perception shapes how others treat him, how he responds, how events are interpreted. It becomes a loop that feeds itself. You do not need to alter the man. You merely alter the context in which he is seen. This can be done through whispers, yes, but also through silence. Allowing a rumor to hang unanswered can be as effective as spreading one. If he does not respond, he seems evasive. If he protests too much, he seems guilty. Even his allies, once confident in his image, will begin to hesitate. They will speak of him with less certainty. They will advise caution where once they swore allegiance. And when perception turns, the man begins to see it himself. He watches people speak more cautiously in his presence, delay decisions, choose others before him. He begins to doubt what is real. This is when the work is complete, not when others turn on him, but when he turns on himself. The court, the marketplace, the streets, these are not governed by truth, but by opinion. Men do not question what everyone around them seems to believe. They follow the current, and if that current flows against your chosen enemy, he will be carried away no matter how tightly he clings to reality. Even if the truth emerges later, it will not matter. Perception is sticky. Once a man is seen in a certain light, all his actions thereafter are interpreted to match it. He becomes trapped within the image you have shaped, unable to escape it, no matter how he struggles. Thus the clever destroyer makes no accusation, raises no scandal, and breaks no law. He does not need to. He plants an idea, feeds a suggestion, cultivates a narrative, and watches it bloom. Others will water it, speak of it, act on it, and believe it to be their own discovery. The man they observe may not have changed, but he is no longer seen the same. And in this altered view lies the beginning of his end. The most elegant form of destruction is one where the victim becomes his own executioner. There is no need for confrontation, no need for overt maneuvering when a man can be guided, subtly, patiently, into undoing himself. The key lies not in forcing his hand, but in placing before him choices that flatter his pride, tempt his ambition, or reassure his fears. When he chooses the wrong path willingly, convinced of his own judgment, the ruin that follows is seen as a natural consequence, not a result of manipulation. Most men believe they understand power, but what they understand is the appearance of control. Give a man the illusion that he commands the field, and he will walk into the trap with confidence. Make him feel untouchable, then let him act accordingly. If he is cautious by nature, encourage him to act decisively. If he is bold, advise him to strike while the iron is hot. These are not lies, merely reflections of what he already believes. You are not misleading him. You are guiding him toward the natural conclusion of his own inclinations. Never advise him to do what you want directly. Instead, confirm what he already wants to do. If he is inclined to silence a rival, agree that it is wise to appear strong. If he is tempted to overextend his influence, praise his daring. If he seeks to gain favor through extravagance, applaud his generosity. By reinforcing his impulses, you wrap his errors in the comfort of approval. The decision is his, the consequences inevitable, the blame invisible. Success is often the most effective lure to self-destruction. A man who has known nothing but triumph begins to mistake luck for wisdom. He grows impatient with caution, suspicious of dissent, intolerant of restraint. Feed this sense of destiny. Suggest that those who counsel delay are jealous, that obstacles are beneath him, that enemies are weak. As his confidence grows beyond his true ability, he will attempt things beyond his reach, and when he fails, the fall will be seen as his fault alone. Vanity is another powerful lever. If a man thinks himself clever, let him believe he is outwitting others. Present simple traps as if they were puzzles. Allow him to think he has uncovered your hidden motives, while your real intentions remain untouched. When he overreacts, acts too soon, or targets the wrong threat, the damage will be done not by your hand but by his miscalculation. He will not see the misstep until the consequences arrive, and even then, his pride may prevent him from admitting it. Fear can be just as useful as pride. Make him believe that danger surrounds him. Suggest that friends may not be loyal, that allies might turn, that silence conceals betrayal. Let him become suspicious, reactive, increasingly isolated in his judgment. He will alienate those who, once supported him, act with greater secrecy and overcorrect where no threat exists. In trying to defend himself, he will disfigure his own command and credibility. His allies will drift away not because they were turned, but because he drove them off. There is no need to hasten this process. The best self-destruction is slow and methodical. The victim must believe he is acting wisely at every step. Do not interrupt his progress, even if he appears to recover or change course. If the seed is planted deeply enough, he will return to the same patterns in time. A man who sees only what he wants to see, hears only what pleases him, and believes he is always in the right requires no enemy. He is his own ruin, wrapped in the cloak of self-assurance, marching toward a fall that he will call fate until the end.